Let's go.
All right, the cat is away, the mice will play. Finally nailed that one the second try. So, Matt, we've got AEW Revolution this Sunday in San Francisco. AEW's first pay-per-view of the year. And I don't know if you've been on Twitter recently, but the discourse, it's getting exhausting. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't even, I was off on Wednesday this week, so I didn't even watch Dynamite Live. First thing I see when I pull up Twitter on Thursday are people complaining about referees holding ladders, something that every company has done ever. Like, guys, if you don't like AEW, you don't have to watch it. It's okay. Just say that the product you don't, it's not a product you enjoy. You can admit that you've been watching WWE your whole life. So a different product with its own paces and quirks. It's different and you don't like different, but you don't want to say that it's different. So you're trying to find every little nitpick possible to try and make it seem less when it's just trying to do its own thing. So So to the masses of Twitter, I ask you, calm down. Now, that's not to say that AEW is perfect right now. It's not.
No,
it's certainly not. But I also think that it's funny that people are saying AEW is not telling stories right now. Where when I look at this Revolution card, the stuff I want to see isn't necessarily the title matches, it's the grudge matches. It's Jon Moxley versus Hangman. It's Ricky Starks finally putting away Chris Jericho. Wardlow and Samoa Joe is a storyline that technically goes back to like last October. And when you look at the title matches, Saraya, Ruby Soho, and Jamie, that's clearly the stepping stone to something bigger, which my guess is War Games, which is going to be awesome. The Elite versus House of Black. Not much build to it, but let's be honest, when they announced Trios titles, that was like the first match everybody named. We're getting it. Awesome. No complaints. But the issue I have with this show, Matt, is the main event, unfortunately. It's Bryan Danielson versus MJF, the AEW World Championship in a 16-minute Iron Man match. Now, with no context, that sounds amazing. Bryan Danielson in the ring for 60 minutes. It's going to be awesome no matter who's in the ring with him. And Max, to his credit, is a lot better than people ever give him credit for. He's a victim of his own success in that way. He doesn't wrestle that often. But every time he does, you hear it, people go, oh yeah, Max is actually really good at this. We just forget it because he'll take the next 2 months off and we won't see him again. And he'll come back and wrestle again and we'll go, oh yeah, right, this dude is legit. He can actually back up all the crap he says week after week.
Right.
The problem I have with this, it's not even the stipulation. I don't care that it's an hour. I've seen Danielson go an hour in an AEW ring and I freaking loved it. Got no issue with that either. The problem is the context surrounding the AEW World Championship. Because I think the angle Max is trying to run right now is a mistake. When you look at the big AEW stories they've done, their magnum opuses, as it were, the Hangman saga goes back years, but it all had to do with people in AEW and their shared histories. Wardlow and Max was a story that starts in late 2019, goes all the way up to last year. And as long as you weren't checking Twitter for about certain plane tickets, what was more rewarding than seeing Max get powerbombed 10 times at Double or Nothing? Spectacular. Punk versus MJF. It was really just a story of toxic fandom and Punk having to combat it and combat a monster he had inadvertently created. But this story is about the WWE. They have attached the WWE to their World Championship for every match from now until the end of the year. And I think that's a mistake. I think Max's idea to say, hey, I want to keep this title until the end of this year when my contract allegedly expires and force a bidding war. And I've made it abundantly clear in my promos, I want to go to the other place. So that makes the story, hey, we've got to get this title off of Max or he's going to WWE. Now I can already hear it in the comics. Hey, isn't that what Punk did twice? Wasn't that both summers of Punk about him threatening to take a world championship to a different company? Combat that. The first summer of Punk was about 2 months. The second summer of Punk
Right.
was a couple of weeks.
Not really a summer.
This was what they are threatening is an entire year where the storyline isn't, hey, how are these two characters in this company fighting each other? It's, hey, one of these guys wants to go to the WWE. How do we stop him? And when you're trying to present yourself as the alternative and not just the little brother, and not just, hey, we're TNA circa 2008 again. You can't have your biggest storyline all be about your guy wanting to go to the other place. It's got to be about what's happening in your company.
Right.
And and to his credit, he hasn't brought it up that much with the Danielson thing. But until that whole bidding war of 2024 thing is dumped, that is going to be an underlying factor in every storyline Max has. And that's a problem because he's also got the World Championship.
Yeah. I mean, but it's not even just a problem for MJF. It's a problem for look at Saraya and Tony Storm and the whole faction based on we're not the originals, right? It's like the originals versus the outsiders. That's also part of their women's championship picture.
I can combat that.
Well, it's not combating. It's a fact that AEW bases is perfectly fine with playing with that, which is fine. I don't even mind.
Here's the difference though with that one. Those women aren't saying, "Hey, let's go back." Paige and Saraya and Tony aren't sitting here going, "Hey, let's beat up these girls and then go back to WWE."
Right, but it still doesn't matter. The fact that they're referring constantly to it's the same thing of Cody destroying a throne. You're constantly referring to the competitor. Like it's a part of your DNA.
References are okay, but you've put in the Max story, you've put WWE on the pedestal of this is the thing to aspire to instead of being at the top of AEW.
Right, but that's been a narrative since they started signing ex-WWE people. It's been a running theme. They're always talking about, there's all kinds of things coming about those stories of AEW's founding pillars and those things and people from the outside. And WWE always factors in, even Tony, referring to, we don't have holidays to ourselves anymore because it's awfully crowded. It doesn't matter whether it's in the press conference, in the promos, whatever, there's always this kind of surrounding cloud with we're going to refer to the other place. And I don't know, at some point, you're AEW now. You don't have to do that. You don't need it. And I don't know. It just seems
fine with them referring to other companies because on top of WWE, you refer to Ring of Honor's history, Impact, New Japan, PWG, the guys over in the UK.
You're not referring to them in the same way.
They refer to all the New Japan history. All of the stuff that was happening in New Japan
history. I'm not talking about acknowledging someone's championship run or whatever. I'm talking about in an antagonistic way. You were talking to when they talk about New Japan or Impact or anything like that, they're not talking about them in the same way they are talking about WWE. Come on. That's
because they don't work with them. They work with everybody else.
Right, but because they're the competition. Because they're their main competition. They're working with everybody else.
Right.
But WWE is their competition and they treat them as such.
Sure.
Which, by the way, they should. But I'm saying it doesn't always have to make it to TV.
And that's fine. All I'm saying is I'm fine with them referencing WWE. I'm fine with them acknowledging the existence of WWE. Because if you're a fan of AEW, you know the other company exists. I'm fine with that. My specific issue is that in this storyline centered around your world championship, you've made it where that world champion wants to leave your company and go to them. Yeah. That's the issue I have.
It's just
the rest of the references I'm fine with. Are they annoying? Are they grating? They can be, but this one's the one where I'm like, you've tainted your main event picture until you fix this. That's my issue.
I think a little bit of the bloom has already fallen off the rose with an MJF title reign way quicker than I thought it would. Because I was one who wanted MJF as champ. So I wanted him to be in that spot. And I don't know. It's for some of the reasons you list, right? He doesn't feel as around, as others. It's kind of that Brock Lesnar syndrome of like our champ is gone and like, oh, okay, well, he's just off TV for a couple weeks. Roman has done it too.
Sure.
But Roman spent a hell of a long time putting in the work and being on TV every single week before this. Like,
and Roman also has the advantage of he doesn't have to necessarily be on TV for his story to progress.
Agreed.
He's got so many other moving pieces that when he's not there, you go, Roman's not here, but what about Jay? What about Sammy? What about Paul? What about Solo? With it, Max, it's just Max, and that's a problem.
Do you think Danielson has a shot?
I think it's possible. I think if they're going to throw any I wish they would abandon the bidding war of 2024 thing. I sincerely do, especially since I don't buy the whole contract thing for a second. I don't think Max was allowed back on TV after the whole plane ticket incident without those things getting fixed. And I think everything since has been a work.
It's kayfabe. Yeah, I don't see
the only thing I can think of that if they're not going to avert away from the bidding war idea. The only thing I can think of that can be interesting is if Max loses the title a couple of times and suddenly the clock is working against him, where he recognizes that my biggest bargaining chip in this whole thing is whether or not I have this. And if I lose this, I have to go into panic mode to get it back. So then it can be interesting if he drops it once or twice between now and then, where suddenly he has to start sprinting his way to try to get it back. And if one of those things is, hey, we're finally going to give Danielson a run with this for a month or two, I'm all for it because I'm tired of Danielson being one of the best wrestlers in the world and not holding the championship. It
seems super odd that he hasn't yet.
He's had multiple attempts at it, which is also the frustrating part.
Now, there's also the theory, right, that like, look, Cole's back in the picture, right? And a lot of people view him as the one to take down MJF. Like,
could be.
He's the Cody Rhodes of it all, right? Like, he's the one that's going to take him down and really get a long run. But like, that story hasn't, like, they haven't even really started building.
I have to think that has something to do with Tony recognized the fact that his pay-per-views are long, and when one of your matches is guaranteed to go an hour and change, because we also have to account entrances and the finish and whatnot, he at least acknowledged, hey, maybe I shouldn't have 14 matches on the card this time. There's only 8. And I'm really hoping he's sticking to just 8. And I'm fine with just 8 if one's going to be a freaking hour.
Oh, absolutely.
So if that meant, hey, let's hold off Adam Cole's big return for a show, heck, maybe put it somewhere close to his hometown, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But
I'm good with that too.
Adam's not a bad pick. There's a couple of other guys out there where it's like, do we run back Hangman? Because he's kind of like he's like the quintessential babyface of the company. When does Kenny turn his head back to that title since he hasn't even looked in that general direction since he came back? Punk. That's the only word I'm going to say is...
Yeah, that's a whole other ball of
action. The dude he's still under contract, so...
Do you think House of Black wins tonight? Or sorry, not tonight, Sunday. Do you think they win Sunday?
So I am over the whole, hey, are the Elite going to WWE thing? I think they'll hold the trios titles through this and maybe drop it to them in a bit. I know some people don't like the Elite. I love the Elite.
No, it's not that I don't like them. It's like, what the hell are they gonna do with House of Black? Like, geez, I mean, this faction's like.
So what you could do is what they should have done, which is let's turn Malachi in the direction of some singles championships, please and thank you.
Yeah, but they're not going to do that. So
they should. And they should also, which they haven't done, it drives me nuts. He's been in the company for a minute now. Buddy Murphy versus Kenny Omega.
It's a great match.
It's the Australian and Canadian versions of each other.
Brody's torn it up every time he's in the ring.
Triggers. Yeah, Buddy is here's a fun fact. When Buddy wrestled Roman, that was the closest we were ever going to get to Roman versus Kenny Omega.
Yeah.
And that was a great match. So let those two fight.
Yeah, no, I just want them to do something. So I was hoping for gold. At least that's a movement in a direction.
And you know what? If they win, you're not going to hear me complain because the House of Black is amazing.
They just sit on the sides, Hey, but but yeah. So anyway, any ending thoughts there before we head out?
Check out my interview with Wardlow. It dropped, I believe it was Wednesday. He had some really good insight into the push last year and why he kind of struggled with it. And how I think he's evolved as a person to where I think if the opportunity presents itself for him again, I think he's going to handle it a lot better than some of the stumbling blocks that hit him last year. Obviously, keep it locked in for full coverage of all things Revolution this Sunday. Our very own Liam Crowley is on assignment out in San Francisco, covering the show live. And after this, Matt, I don't know if you've heard, but we're on the road to WrestleMania. So you can bet your bottom dollar that any big story that comes up between now and then, we're going to be all over. And we're going to be coming here on this show talking about it. We're going to be on our TikTok, Comic Book Wrestling. If you follow that show, something good might happen if we hit a certain milestone. But I'm not going to tell you what it is or what the number is, but you got to follow us to find out. Follow me on Twitter at ConnorCaseyCB, Matt Aguilar at Matt AguilarCB. And if you need anything when it comes to the coverage of professional wrestling, we got you.